This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hello, this is Igoro, host of the Igoro Show, and you are listening to the Steve and Crypto Show. So keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
Hey, welcome to the Steve and Crypto Show, presented by thestevestrout.com. I'm Steve.
I'm CryptoZoo. This is episode 121, and we are recording this on a Monday. It's a nice day, sitting out here on the porch, having a chat. We have a really, really great episode planned for you guys. But before we get to that, we got to kind of pay our bills and whatnot and help keep the lights on at our studio, as we always do. So if you guys are feeling generous and you want to help out your third favorite podcast, here's how you can do so. Head over to patreon.com/SteveCrypto. We have an assortment of different videos ranging from like unboxing videos to spoiler movie reviews. We have pictures from outings that Steve has been on and, outings that I've been on just separately. We like to kind of give a little bit of a slice of our lives aside from the podcast in Patreon. So something new that's coming there real soon is talk about the Fully Loaded Festival with Bert Kreischer. I just went there out to the Gorge on the 15th, just this last weekend. So we're going to chat about that real soon. So again, go to patreon.com/SteveCrypto if you want to hear that and see a lot of extra bonus content. Also, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/SteveCrypto. All contributions go towards helping out the show. It goes towards our recording gear, our promotional tools, getting into cons, an assortment of things. And we appreciate everybody who has contributed, everyone who's thinking about doing so. Head over to Patreon. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/SteveCrypto.
That's what I love about our show. Because sometimes we fuck up, but the show goes on.
It shows that we're real. We're real.
We're real.
Like a J-Lo and Ja Rule song. We're real.
If they only knew how much shit we edit out. But carry on.
Yeah. Of course, you can join our Facebook group if you want to keep in touch with little announcements that we have. Maybe we'll mention guests that we might have lined up from time to time. We usually don't like to reveal that too much in advance, but we post in there, and we encourage you to post in there as well. So if you have something you're creative you're working on, throw it in the Steve and Crypto Show Facebook group. Encourage your friends that are creative. Join the group. Even if you don't want to share anything, it's cool to join because there's almost 1,000 people in there that are posting from time to time. So you can check out all this horror content, pop culture content, definitely more on the horror side.
Once we do hit 1,000, we're going to do a giveaway.
That chicken dinner giveaway. It's coming. You're getting that 8-piece. And if you are looking to get some merchandise for your third favorite podcast, you can head to Etsy/shop/Steve and Crypto merch, or just look us up on Etsy and you'll find 2 different t-shirt designs. You'll find a coffee mug and a magnet. If you want some stickers, you can answer some horror trivia, which we haven't done in a little while, but go back and listen to the old episodes of the archives. You'll find plenty of episodes with trivia. Hit us up online at CryptoZoo88 at the Steve Strout and give us the answer to that trivia, what episode it's from. And if it's correct, if you send us the right answer, we will send you a trivia. Back to that whole editing thing. We will send you a sticker pack, and you can do what you like with those. You can give them out to your friends. You can put them on your car, whatever you want. I believe
Wear
Steve
'em as-
also has
Wear them as pasties.
wear him as pasties. Go ahead and do that too. I believe we might have a couple more trucker hats in our possession, which you
Just
could
might
contact
be.
Steve directly if you want to get your hands on one of those.
Or catch us at an event.
That's right. Catch us at an event. We might have some upcoming events that we can reveal down the road. But yeah, those are the ways to contact us. Those are the ways to get your merch, to support the show. We appreciate you guys for spreading the word any way that you can, whether it's wearing one of our shirts around in your town or sharing the podcast online to people.
Maybe we'll run into somebody wearing a Steven Crypto shirt at the circus when it comes to town.
Oh, you know what? There's a possibility we just might, or we might be those people wearing those t-shirts. But yeah, so funny you mentioned that, Steve. The circus is coming to Port Townsend.
Port
That's
Townsend,
right.
first of all, Port Townsend is a fucking circus, but there's like a real circus with acrobats and jugglers and shit.
Yep. And I know we talked about a circus once before, like a paranormal circus. This is a straight up family friendly, action packed circus. So you can go to rastellicircus.com, RASTELLI circus.com. And the shows are Friday, July 28th at 4 and 7, and Saturday, July 29th at 4 and 7. So come out to our neck of the woods, go to the Jefferson County Fairgrounds, check out a real circus. It's going to have world-class performers, jugglers, acrobats, comedians, clowns, aerialists who come together from various countries to create a truly international spectacle.
They should have Art the Clown.
Oh,
They should
oh,
just show up and just start killing acrobats.
how wild would that be?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just a reason to lure people to town to come hang out with us too. So
Yep. And you know what, real quick, since we're talking about events in town, you could also come out to Port Hadlock, which is not far from Port Townsend where we are. And Saturday, August 5th, at the Crazy Otter in Port Hadlock, we are going to have an event called No One Fights Alone, an evening of music and friends in support of Tony Boudelier. Their family is having some real big health issues, and we just want to try to help make a difference. Music starts at $10 suggestion or suggested donation. A bunch of people performing from rock, folk, hip hop. Come check it out.
including Crypto Zoo.
Yeah, I'll be there as well.
That's the main reason you should go, for a good cause to help somebody, and so you could see one half of your third favorite podcast perform. He will not be doing circus stunts. He will be performing his original music, which you guys will dig. Do you do like a part of your song that we use on the show in your set?
I sure do.
You do? Okay.
That's like probably one of my favorite songs to perform.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. So it must give you a little pride every time we start the show.
You should come to the show so you can hear it.
Well, that day, it depends how that goes, because that's one of the days we might have an event, and you might have to cut out early to go do this show, and I'll have
That's
to
true.
stay back with that show.
Do you feel like revealing anything about that event real quick?
Well, I don't have full details yet, but we were invited to a grand opening for a comic shop, which we'll mention once we have it, the date set in stone. It could be that date. It could be a different date. We'll see. There's a couple other things in the works, but once they're set in stone, like I said, we'll do it. We'll announce them and give you guys a list and post them online and annoy the shit out of you with all the details. That being said, did you have something you'd like to add?
We're talking about events. One more real quick event that I just found out about this morning. Since we talk pop culture on here and we're Washingtonians, I got to mention it. I'm sure a bunch of you listening grew up watching Whose Line Is It Anyway, just like I did. I don't know about you, Steve, but I used to watch it. That was one of the few shows I could watch with my parents that we all enjoyed. And Whose Line Is It Anyway is doing Who's Live Anyway, and they're actually coming out to our neck of the woods. They're going to be in Olympia October 4th at the Washington Center, And then October 6th and 7th, they will be in Bremerton, Washington at the Admiral Theater, right downtown. So even if you're out in Seattle, if you're listening and you're wondering, like, what's up at the Seattle show, it's literally a ferry ride. Take the ferry. You could walk on because the venue is downtown right by the ferry. So you could just walk on, go get you a burger and a beer or whatever, and walk to the Admiral Theater. I'm seriously thinking about attending this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Well, anyway, if you're listening and you want to check it out, if you live close by, you want to check it out, go to whoslive.com. That's it.
Well, there you go. We need some more horror shit in this area. That's what we need.
Yeah. We do.
Like we we love all the pop culture stuff, and that is cool and entertaining. But like the only stuff happening here is an improv show and a circus. Like, I want some fucking horror. Some scary shit. We gotta wait till like a week around Halloween where we get a couple of haunts pop up. Like, no, I want fucking in our town. I want like a horror movie night monthly or something at one of the theaters.
We're such a like Victorian haunted hippie town.
Dude, we could do some spooky shit, man.
We need something. We need something extra around here.
Well, this is the town that a great horror short film was made in this town, and it featured this beautiful town as like a fucking character in it. But they couldn't get no love from like the local film festival or anything. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Nobody showed it. I'm pissed off for the creator, which we had on our show.
Yeah.
I'm a little upset for her.
Anyways, one thing I'm not upset for is being part of the Deluxe Edition Network. Go to deluxeeditionnetwork.com and you'll find a gang. I don't know if I should use the word gang. You'll find a collection of over 20 podcasts, 20 independent podcasts that are all on there, different types of shows, different genres, and we're all there supporting each other and growing our shows together. A lot of great shows, including the July podcast of the month. One is Growing Up Bananas, and the other is In a Pickle. So check out those shows and all the other shows, including your third favorite podcast, the Steve and Crypto Show, over at deluxeeditionnetwork.com. And so this episode, we have a long conversation, and we got a little weird in this one. We kind of shared some stories that, like, personally, I was kind of embarrassed sharing my stories because they sound so fucking outlandish and like bullshit, but it's like stuff that happened. Like, and like your story, it's like, it sounds crazy. Sounds like this sounds unbelievable. But like, no, it happened. Like, why am I gonna make up some weird shit? Like, I don't know.
And we know there aren't that many Port Townsend people that are listening, or at least not that we know of. If you are listening, speak up and tell us.
They're not.
There's a couple of you. There's a couple, and we love you guys. But the Port Townsend people that are listening to our show are probably nodding their head, or you will be. You'll be nodding your head along, like, yeah, that checks out. That's legit for Port Townsend. You're like, yeah, that sounds real.
But then she also shared some interesting stories too. So we had Ashley Hilt, who is the co-host of a podcast called
We Talk Weird on Wednesdays.
Yes. Sorry, my throat just got really dry and I couldn't even say a word. I think talking weird made me, I don't know what the fuck happened. We Talk Weird on Wednesdays. Ashley Hilt, aka Asherz, came on and told us about the podcast and told us a little about her history as a cryptozoologist and a weirdo, pretty much. She's one of us.
Yeah.
And she was fucking super fun to talk to. So let's just shut the fuck up and dig into that interview and meet Asherz, and we will be back to say bye after this.
My lords and ladies, Lord Blooddraw here, and you are listening to the Steve and Crypto Show. Now, if you're a horror fan, you know this is the place to be. Ha ha!
Hey, what is happening, everybody? We are on the Steven Crypto Show. We invited a guest. Let me give you a little backstory first. I've been listening to a new to me podcast called On Wednesdays We Talk Weird, and it's a pretty casual. They have a conversation. They kind of catch up. The co-hosts catch up with each other on what they've been up to in life, and talk about weird news and stuff. And then they go into a segment where they feature a certain piece of a cryptozoological sighting or something paranormal or just something weird. It's a great show. They're just fun. They say bad words like us, which is very cool. I'm a big fan of that because they're real. They're just, they seem like real people. You sit and listen to them, and you feel like you're part of the fun. So we have Ashley Hilt, aka Asherz, from On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. Let's jump in and let's talk weird on the Steven Crypto Show. How
That
are you?
sounds good to me. I'm great. I'm excited to talk weird with you guys.
We definitely talk weird. So
We talk weird and we talk about weird things.
weird things, exactly. So let's just dive right in and ask what got you interested in paranormal and cryptozoology and all the weird shit that we might be skeptical about, but we want to believe in.
Sure, that's a good question. So I was initially really into cryptozoology, starting in about sixth grade. So, back in sixth grade, I had picked up, those little, we used to have those little magazines that they pick, like little Time or Life, little magazines that you'd read, and there was an article in there about Ray Wallace, and I didn't know who the hell it was at the time. That's why I read the article. But I'm gonna tell you guys, Ray Wallace is a really popular Bigfooter, and Ray is really well known for finding Bigfoot tracks, in various places. But his most famous tracks were the tracks that were found at Bluff Creek. Bluff Creek, the location out in California, ended up being where the famous Patterson Gimlin film had been shot at. So that famous, the sexy Patty with the big titties that look back around. Yeah, that's that's what it is. That's the Patterson Gimlin film. And so Ray Wallace had recently died, and the article was about how on his deathbed, Ray had admitted that he faked the footprints. So that called into question, well, if the footprints are fake and Patterson and Gimlin went out there specifically to go film Bigfoot, then that means that film was fake too, right? So that's the logic. So I'm not very old, but I'm old-ish. And so I read this article about this, and it just kept talking about this video. I'd never seen this video. So I go home and I fire up the old dial-up computer and I get online and I look up the video and I download it. And after about a week, I finally am able to watch this video. And I pull it up, and once I had seen that footage, it just completely blew my mind. I couldn't believe that anybody thought that this video was fake. I just couldn't. I'm like, this is obvious. Like, oh my God, I'm Bigfoot. And so, because Bigfoot's always something you kind of hear about, right? But you never really get into, I guess, unless you're me. So
Or me, but yeah.
well, there you go. I was hooked from the get-go. I was like, I love everything about this. So there was also, at the time, we were taking typing classes, and there was like a little website that you can get onto, and they had a whole section of cryptids. Now, like school computers back in the day, there's only so many websites you can get onto, right? But they had this whole section of like, it was maybe 6 or 7 cryptids on this one website, and it was just kind of like a picture of what it allegedly looks like, and then like a blurb. The second one that I can remember falling in love with was the Loch Ness Monster because of the surgeon's photo. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Why do people think these things aren't real? We got pictures of them. And then I just continued. I mean, from there, as a teenager, I woke up every single morning. As a website I get onto. It's called cryptomundo.com. And, it's ran by Craig Woolheater, and he had Warren Coleman writing on it. I mean, these really big names in cryptozoology. And I would get on there every single day and see what the new updates were. And they were posting, and they would post stuff here and there, and some of it was real exciting, some of it was not. But I knew, I'm like, I want to be a cryptozoologist. That's what I want to do. Well, there's no degree for cryptozoology. And so my dream was always, well, I'm going to get into zoology. And then from there, I can use my credentials to, be somebody. And well, that didn't necessarily happen. So, fresh out of high school, I had a very, very interesting life. I got married, had a child, got divorced, went into other, avenues of business. I mentioned to you guys earlier, I got into marketing. It just didn't really pan out the way that I wanted it to. I was always into the stuff, but I didn't really make anything of it. So fast forward, I wasn't really into ghosts. I didn't like ghosts. I was terrified of aliens. I didn't want anything to do with them. Ghosts to me were always kind of boring, but we would in my youth, we'd go to the spooky crybaby bridges. You know what I mean? We would go, drive down these haunted roads and things like that. We had some experiences, but that didn't really set my soul on fire. And so, I just kind of continued on with life. Initially, this is important. I'd gone to school. I had intended on going for astrophysics, but I'm a proud college dropout because I decided to raise my kid instead, and I never went back. Until like I said, did the marketing thing. Anyway, 2019 comes, okay, and one of my friends goes, "Hey, West Virginia, it's like 2 hours away. They got that Mothman festival down there. We should go." And I'm like, okay, sure. I didn't believe in the Mothman. I didn't, it didn't matter. I could have talked to a witness. I could have talked to anybody. I did not believe that this was an actual creature. I just thought it was all good fun, right? It's all going to be good fun. And I figured, fuck it, let's go. One of her friends, a friend of my friend, came all the way from Arkansas to go to the Mothman Festival with us. Now, this guy, her and I both kind of talked to him a long time. We were like Twitter mutuals forever. And he had a big YouTube channel. He actually had a big gaming channel. And he's like, well, I'm gonna come down there and I want to make a little like YouTube video like for this. And we're like, yeah, sure, whatever. So we all go down to the Mothman Festival, and I can't really describe exactly what happened. I can describe what happened. I can't quite give you the feeling of what happened down there. It was an insane weekend. It wasn't anything off the wall. Mothman didn't, swoop down and go, "Hey, I'm the Mothman," or anything like that. But it was just a series of very strange coincidences. And, again, me being who I was at the time, I bought into cryptozoology. I can buy into an undiscovered species of ape living in North America, right? I didn't buy into, a 7-foot tall flying humanoid. Like, that was nuts to me. And, anything else. I was always scientifically driven, always had been. But this was like overwhelming. I could not ignore the fact that all of this was happening in one weekend. So a couple of examples that I like to tell people is like, at one point, I'm a smoker. We were outside smoking, and the guy, he stops me and he's like, "Oh my God, stop, look down." I'm like, okay. I look down, and at my feet there's a dead moth right there on the ground. Huge. It was a huge dead moth. At one point, we were kind of joking about all these things happening, and we are like, "Oh," we'd say, "it's a sign from the universe." Well, we stopped at a pharmacy, and I'll never forget it because it was like an hour away from where we were supposed to go, because everything in West Virginia is that far away from each other. And it's called Fruits Pharmacy. And when we got there, everybody goes in the pharmacy. I get out to smoke a cigarette, and I see like a newspaper holder, and huge on the side of the newspaper holder, the name of the publication is Signs of the Times. And it just blew my fucking mind. And this continued to happen, and I didn't really know what to make of it. And then, I kind of started digging into this dumb YouTube video. Well, we had decided, you know what? There's a lot more to this. This is very strange. Maybe we should make a documentary about it. So I started doing research for this documentary we were making, and just kind of as time went on, I found out that there's kind of a lot more to this whole Mothman story than just maybe they saw a sandhill crane. And that's what really, really got me into high strangeness. February of 2020, I was laid off from my job. I worked for a very famous company that was sold off. And 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit. So I thought, you know what? Clearly, the universe is speaking to me. As crazy as it sounds, clearly the universe is speaking to me. And I need to, this is what I need to do. It's my job now. It's my full time job. And it's been my full time job ever since. So,
So basically, your interest started and just snowballed into boom. Now you're a
now I'm here.
podcaster and doing the thing. So was there over that weekend? Was there talk with other people who have encountered Mothman and stuff? Or did you hear stories from them that kind of fed your interest and convinced along with all these other signs?
No, not at all, actually. It's kind of funny. So the first day of the festival, we didn't get there till 6 o'clock at night. It's pretty terrible. And at that point, one of our goals was that we were supposed to be, vetting people for interviews because we were making a little documentary for the YouTube channel. And, it was this big thing. So we got there at 6. The whole event was pretty much done. The next day we did get there a little earlier. We had met up with a guy, another YouTuber. His name's Bigfoot Bob. I don't think he YouTubes anymore, but hilarious channel. Go check him out. He's a great guy. We did interview him, and he kind of, he was telling stories about other things because while we're there, we're finding out that it's not just the Mothman sightings in the 1960s that's weird about this whole area. We're finding out that the little hotel on the strip there is super haunted. Bigfoot Bob's telling us the story about some event that happened to him. I don't even remember. And then, I asked him, I'm like, have you ever seen the Mothman? He said, yes, he did. He saw it in bright daylight. It kind of passed over his car while driving around one of the areas. And then he told us that like right down the street, there's supposedly a werewolf. I mean, and it was like, this place is really strange, huh? So it wasn't so much the fact that like there was a Mothman story that was shared with us that was convincing. It was just the fact that like the whole town was tragic. And there's these like when you go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, there's like these placards all over town that just kind of historical placards that tell you what happened. There's one for the Silver Bridge, which is the big, the one that the Mothman collapsed allegedly. But there's another one that talks about how the county jail exploded. It was like this big tragedy, like exploded and killed everybody in it. Like nobody ever talks about that, and that was strange. So we're like, what's the deal with what happened there? There was just so much about it that was so odd.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty weird place story wise. It's also weird that Bigfoot Bob somehow sounds like he's had multiple sightings and encounters and knows all the ghosts, and that's is that like where you think these entities and cryptids and stuff just like seek out certain people to like, hey, this is Bob, let's all go expose ourselves to him? Or what, how do you, is that me kind of thinking crazy, or is that
So that is a thing. So what I find is that people who experience high strangeness tend to have experiences over and over again. The exception to that rule seems to be Bigfoot sightings. You got people that'll see Bigfoot and then they'll never see anything ever again. And then you got
right?
people that will have a haunted house as a kid. They see UFOs later as an adult. Some people are abductees. Some people see things like the Mothman, it is a trend that does tend to happen. And I do believe that there is an explanation for it. But it's a lot to chew. I mean, I'll
Yeah,
give it to you, but it's a lot to chew.
I feel like part of it could be just having a hell of an imagination, like not discounting things. Like I like to, like you said, you think scientifically first. Like I try
Right.
to find reasons why something is bullshit before I believe it.
And that is a huge part of the job. And that's something that a lot of people as investigators don't do. And it's very irresponsible. You see a lot of YouTubers, podcasters, whatever you want to call them, influencers, that just feed into the bullshit. You see, I feel like you see it a lot more with like ghost channels. But if you're actually if you're a good investigator, if you're really good at your job, the first thing that you do is try to debunk it with a real life explanation. And of course, we've got some degree of confirmation bias if we do have our own experiences, because, yeah, we want to believe that these things are real. So then taking your experience and sharing it with other trusted colleagues is going to be very important, because maybe there's something that somebody else picks up on that I didn't, or maybe, vice versa. There is a theory in science. They looked at this phenomena before. So another thing that's consistent with these people that tend to always have these sightings, every single one of them have experienced some type of either psychological or physical trauma. That is across the board, 100%.
Something told me you were going to say that.
Yeah,
it's true.
That's except for the Bigfoot people.
Except for the Bigfoot people. They're the only ones that don't have that trend. Everybody else, everything else that's just fucking weird and strange, they all have some type of psychological trauma. So scientists have actually done studies on this, and they've taken a look at why this happens. And what they found is that people that experience trauma end up having what they call fantasy prone personalities, okay, which is an actual term that they use for it. So there is a phenomenon. I do believe that, listen, trust me, I get my fair share of crazy people in my inbox all the time. And I'm like, whatever it is that you're saying to me right now is complete bullshit. But you do have to consider other factors into this. So I would like to see those studies expanded and do more with it, and see how much of it is just, like you said, an overactive imagination. How much of it is that, because you have a traumatized brain, trauma changes your brain completely.
Yeah.
Is that why they're able to see these things or have these things happen all the time? Is what's coming first? Maybe they're being, damaged from the start from paranormal entities. I mean, I think for the most part, it's just life kind of sucks, and that's what happens first. But, it's something that we got to look into, I believe. I think it's really important that we do.
Some of it is probably people just wanting and hoping to see something.
Yes.
I feel like
they're
that's
out
a
in
lot
the
of
woods, and maybe they want to believe they saw a Bigfoot when they really saw a bear. Things like that.
I feel like that's a lot of the thing with like ghosts and stuff. Like people go into, they go in on like a hunt and they are hoping to see something.
Yeah.
They want it so bad. So that tree is now Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of my really close friend of mine, she owns a local oddity shop here. And she ended up opening up a haunted museum in the basement of full of allegedly haunted items. And I'll be honest, some of the stuff down there is fucking weird. She'll admit that. Some of the stuff down here is really weird, but some of it's just kind of bullshit. She's like, I've owned it for so long, nothing's ever happened. She's got one of the things in the museum she has is this collection of dolls, right? Of course, people hate the creepy dolls. But as the story goes, she bought them from an estate sale. They belong to a dying woman, and the caretaker of the woman would say that this woman was bedridden. She could not get out of bed. And she would say that she would find the dolls all around her in circles, on the bed, with no way of the dolls, getting on the bed. So she's got somebody who regularly comes to her museum once a week and goes down to the basement and holds the dolls. And nothing's ever happened, but, she's got this theory that people just want it so bad that they're willing to do anything to get that paranormal experience, including coming down once a week to somebody's, bullshitty haunted museum to hug on dolls, so, and she's right.
Right. And they probably want it so bad because, like you said, the scientific studies found, people like trauma victims and stuff, they need something or want something.
Or even
And
just the
this should be,
basic, need to feel special, to feel different
yeah,
from everybody else. You're special when you have an encounter, right? All of a sudden. But that's not necessarily, I mean, it doesn't help anything, because the facts are there are strange phenomena that happens in our world. It's not doing us any justice to lie about it. Like, it's
yeah,
not helping. It just hurts.
right, right. Especially when it's something like, Bigfoot. Like, we want proof, and if there's people out here bullshitting about it, and it just makes it harder for the scientific world to really invest
Yes.
time and effort into it, because like, these people are crazy. Like, no, it's maybe some of them are, like you said, but at the same time, there is people are saying something.
Right. There's definitely, I mean, and that is the hard thing. That's the difficult part about trying to get people to take it all seriously. People love to watch the Bigfoot bros on TV and stuff like that. And it's annoying because that's not scientific study. Field research is very important. You have to, if you want to see a Bigfoot, well, guess where you gotta be? In the woods. You're not
Yeah,
gonna see one sitting at home. But when they go out there and they make themselves look like morons, we're
hmm,
never going to get the proper funding
nope,
scientifically to do something like a genome project with alleged Bigfoot hair samples and DNA and stuff like that. Who the hell's going to pay for that stuff? Nobody's going to, because we're going to make a mockery of it. And we need to stop doing that.
yeah. What do you think? You think it'll take like a sure piece of evidence or proof to get people like that to finally open their eyes and be like, okay, maybe we should stop laughing at, you know, Bob for this, that, or the other thing, and maybe start taking it serious.
I think that yeah, I mean, at this point, I think that in order to get people to believe Bigfoot exists, you need a Bigfoot body now. You
Yeah.
can't create a piece of video evidence or pictures that people would believe anymore. AI is so fantastic. I've seen them going around. Man, they're good.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not real, but they sure do look convincing, and people think that they're real. And but that's not going to prove it to the masses. And I say that all aliens also. Aliens is another thing. You're not going to get people to. I mean, we've got the entire U.S. government now openly saying, "Hey, we've dedicated a whole branch to studying these things," and there's still people like, "So you're talking life on other planets," and they're like, "So what?" It's not going to be a big deal unless they came down and go, take me 2 years later. And then I don't know what the hell we're gonna do about ghosts. I'll be honest with you. I've have a slightly controversial views on ghosts in the paranormal community, and what I mean by that is that I don't think ghosts are dead people. That's not to say hauntings aren't real. They are. I don't think it's what everybody thinks it is. Um, but man, I don't know how you could prove that to people without somebody just experiencing, a ghost in general on their own. I don't even know how that's gonna pan out.
Yeah. So, why do you think, personally, why do you think we haven't found a Bigfoot body yet? You would think, animals die in the woods all the time and come across carcasses, and well, why do you think that hasn't turned up?
So, as someone that spends a lot of time in the woods, you do sometimes come across carcasses, but uh, not all the time. I certainly haven't found the dead body of every animal out there. Now, again, I'm just one person in the woods, right?
Right.
But what I think about these things is that they're very small population. When an animal goes extinct, okay, when we mark an animal as extinct, they're not actually, we don't have a way to account for every single, one of that species. We can't track every animal on the planet. So realistically, even though we say scientifically they're extinct, it's just that the pool of them is so small that we don't believe that they will repopulate. However, sometimes they do repopulate and they do come back into existence. The ivory billed woodpecker is a great example of that. They were just announced extinct, I believe, back in the 60s. I might be wrong about that, but fairly recently. Which I understand it's a bird, so it's smaller, right? However, we now have a group of experts that have, guess what, received the funding to go out and search for these things and have been for years and have video evidence of the ivory-billed woodpecker. But scientifically, we haven't solidified enough evidence to go, hey, these things are still alive. They're still around, but we still don't know what that population is like. So they still could technically considered extinct. Now, as far as Bigfoot itself goes, excuse me, I believe that they're a very small population, and that they migrate. I think that that's the only way these things could live in North America because they are so large and they would require so much in order to survive that they have to move around to keep up their food source. And so I think that they move a lot. And, when they're on the move like that all the time, what are the chances of somebody, coming across a body where it died where we can't typically get to, or, they could be burying their dead. We don't know. Some animals do that. That could be why. It's just that we're not hitting each other at the right time. It just hasn't. It's a matter of time for me. But again, with population so small, let's say they got 5 deaths in a year. We don't know how many there are, but let's just say that. Well, then what are the chances of people finding those, 1 out of 5 out of however many square miles there are of forestry in the United States or in the North America,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So the show on Wednesdays we talk weird.
Yeah.
What how did you guys get it started? Like what led to you guys saying, all right, let's sit down and do this?
Oh man. So I started the show back in April of 2020, because, well, kind of going off of what was happening. So again, I was making a Mothman documentary.
Yep.
And I ended up parting ways with the original director. And I felt like this information was so important. I needed to get this out to people. So I was going to finish this. My God, if I did anything, I was going to finish this documentary. I've never filmed anything a day in my life. I didn't get a smartphone until 2019. Like I had no idea what I was doing. So I was like, well, let me get on social media. Let me start building a footprint, because if I make this documentary and it comes out and nobody knows who I am, what's it matter? And so I was just looking for people to kind of help on the documentary. I'm like, who knows how to do anything ever? My current co-host, Pato, he ends up following me over on Twitter, and we had met each other through horror Twitter, through horror movies.
Yep.
And so, he sent me this email. It's a really long email. He's like, hey, I make movies. Here's my movies. Gave me his IMDb page. I'm like, great. He's like, I can help. I live in Chicago and you're in Ohio, but like I can edit, like I can do whatever. And then also is like, by the way, I've had these really weird experiences. And he sends me like this book of like all this weird stuff that's ever happened in his life. I was like, we need to talk. So I call him one day, and him and I sit down. God, we talk for like 3 hours, him and I, just shooting the shit. I mean, we got along right away. And I was just kind of telling him what I was about, what I was trying to do. He's like, why don't you start a podcast? That's a real easy way to let people know who you are. It's an easy way to show people that you know your shit, and you don't even have to put pants on. And I was like, man, that's a great idea. So I started it not originally with Pato. I started it with my quarantine buddy at the time, my friend Ivy. And her and I did it for like 6 months, and then she ended up having to go back to work, which was completely understandable. She just didn't have time to do it anymore. And Pato stepped up to the plate, and it's just been lightning in a bottle.
So it was the no pants thing that sold you. Got it.
Absolutely the no pants
No
thing.
pants. You're like,
I'm not
I
wearing
don't
any
know if I
pants
want to
right
do
now.
this. You don't have to wear pants.
Like my
Perfect, I'm in.
rule. If I'm doing a podcast, sans pants every time.
Yeah. See, I usually wear just throw on sweats, but I'll keep my upper half looking normal,
That's why I asked if it was on video. I'm like, do I got to put
Oh, yeah.
clothes on? Fuck.
No, I've had that's why I used to tell people. They ask like, is it video, or it's like, you don't need to worry about your hair. Be all right. It's just we just use the audio. Like, perfect.
I find that deceptive because I've gone on podcasts and like all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, video. And it's like, listen, a podcast is audio. If you're going to have video on, you need to tell me about it before.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually just reason we use this one, it's cheap to use Zoom.
Sure.
And just the conversation flows. You're not interrupting each other, or you could just like a phone call, you're trying to you'll talk over each other or something, and
Right.
you can usually tell when somebody's done, speaking their getting their point across. But yeah. Anyways, so on Wednesdays we talk weird. So you guys have been doing this show for almost 3 years now. 3 years.
A little over 3 years, yeah.
3 years. How
Every
many
Wednesday.
episodes are you?
I think we're at 100 and I think it's 67. It's quite a bit. I've only skipped a couple of Wednesdays due to extreme I think maybe like 3 Wednesdays for the whole
Right.
whole run of the series. So it's very consistent. Typically if we cancel, it's because we absolutely have to. I mean, it's my day, it's my job. I run this like clockwork. I'm like, there's gonna be an episode this week. So yeah, I mean, quite a while. It's fun.
What have been some of the weirdest topics that you touched on the show?
I mean, we've talked about pretty much everything. When I started it, I wanted to obviously get myself out there as a researcher, let people know that, hey, I'm doing the damn thing. But I wanted it to be a variety show just because I don't want to get burnt out. So it's one thing, if people from here come over the show, one thing you guys will notice, there's like true crime episodes on there too. Sometimes we did an episode on fringe parenting, like what it's like to be a fringe parent. You know what I mean? Like what it's like to go to the PTO meetings and tell people what you do for a living and stuff like that. There's one episode, exactly one, that is unpublished. We ended up removing it. It is on the Patreon, so if you want to hear it, you got to go to the paywall. But it was the first person we ever brought on for an interview on the show. And this individual, gosh, here we go. This individual found me on Facebook, and he didn't know who I was, except for that my bio had that I was a filmmaker. And, he was like, well, I want to make some films. I have a very special talent. I'm like, oh God, here we go. I've heard this one before. I'm ready for it. Right. And then he starts telling me, I'm just like, okay. He's like, well, I have the biggest penis in the world and I can do things with it. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. But I'm not really paying him much mind, but he's kind of fun, right? We're kind of going back and forth. And he's like telling me, he's like, I host shows at my house. So I do these performance acts in my home and people come and they pay a lot of money to watch me do this. And I'm like, well, what do you do with your penis? What is it that you're doing? And he's like, no, like it's massive. He's like I can do push-ups with my penis. I'm like, okay, whatever, guy. I'm like, he just wants me to ask for pictures of his penis. And at some point I get curious and I'm like, okay, let me see your penis. Let me see it. And he's like, no. He's like, look, I'm doing another show this date and time. Come check it out. And I'm like, I'm absolutely not doing that.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Eventually, he does send me pictures of his penis. And I shit you not, this man's penis, okay? So he's got one picture where it's laying across his body, his whole body, upwards, and it hits his face, okay? Hits about the bridge of his nose, and it's about half as wide of his face. And I could not believe what I was seeing. It was insane. I'm like, what is going on here? He sent me other angles of him holding up. He sent me, and I'm like, what is going on? So I Google it. I'm like, surely this guy is part of like the world records, right? His biggest penis in the world. And I Google it and it's not him. It's some other guy with like a 15-inch long penis. And this guy beats that. I mean, completely. And I'm like, what is going on? So I'm like, have you ever contacted Guinness? Like, why are you talking to me? Like, what is going on here? And he's like, yes, I have. He was like, but it gets weird. You don't want to hear about it. I'm like, oh no, I like weird. Tell me about it. He says, well, when I contacted Guinness, they came out, they measured me, and they did determine that, my penis is 2.5 times the size of the current record holder and like 2 times the size soft. So they compared both hard and soft. I'm like, okay. He was like, but then that's when the government hacked all my stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why would the government hack all your stuff? Because of your large penis. This is the payoff right here. He said, because I am an alien. I'm an alien hybrid. I've been being abducted since I was a child, and they have been upgrading my DNA every year. And the reason why I have a large penis is so that I am a walking billboard for people. So I attract people, and then I explain to them about the alien stuff. And I'm blown away. So we had him on the show to talk about this stuff. And the shit he said was insane. He would talk about how he'd like leave here. Like, he says that he spent a bunch of time on Mars and that he's responsible for the Martians dying, going extinct, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And he's like crying, telling it. I mean, the guy's dead serious. Now, here's what I can tell you. Is that guy an alien hybrid? I don't know. I probably not, right? But the man has the biggest penis I've ever seen in my entire life. That's what I know for sure. And that's absolutely the weirdest story that we've ever talked about. And now we vet our guests a little bit better.
Yeah, that's why I think maybe the blood rushed to it too many times and short circuited his brain or something. But
I have no idea. I'm like, look, I don't know if it's because he was like telling me stories, because it was never sexual. He's like, on a personal note, he's telling me stories about he gets arrested all the time because he can't hide it. You can't hide. It's so big, you can't really hide it. It's not like out, but you can see it. He's telling me that the wintertime is his favorite because he can like lift it up and like tie it around his shoulder. Yeah. And like he could wear like a big coat, nobody sees it. I mean, it's insane, the shit that this guy was saying. And I'm like, so at the end of the day, again, like I said, seeing an alien, probably not, but something's definitely going on with his penis, and he could make a whole lot of money doing that. He just needs to go somewhere else. That's not me.
Just the government holding him down, I guess.
Just
To be rich.
I guess.
It is weird.
I
Like I don't think I've ever wanted to see a penis so bad.
Everybody says that. I know. And I don't talk to him. He went crazy after the episode. So that's why it's unlisted now.
Okay.
He like the week that the episode drops, the guy starts like texting both Pat and I, and he's like freaking out. He's like, I didn't know you were recording me. I didn't want this out there. Now everybody knows. And I'm like, you just told me everybody knows anyway. How can you walk around with that giant dick and nobody knows? Like, what are you talking about? And it was crazy. He was like telling us he was going to come to our houses, and so we were like, we're just going to delete this.
Yeah, like he might show up and beat us with that thing or something.
Yeah.
God dang.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's I didn't know what to say. I'm like,
You'll never hear anything like it anywhere else. I promise you that. I haven't heard anything half as crazy. People love it. People love that talk. And so the first thing we did when we launched the Patreon was release that episode. I'm like, fuck this. You guys can hear it. And I told everybody, I'm like, hey, you guys, just go sub for the month just to hear that one episode. It's worth it. And people did. I mean, by the droves. People came and listened to it. Because it's just kind of become a joke amongst the show. And we talk about it. I've never talked to that guy. His name's Justin. I don't remember his last name. But he's out there somewhere with his big cock. So
he's in a loony bin somewhere.
Good for him.
In a padded room. Him and his giant thing.
He's using his penis
so
like a
my
connection on the door.
My connection has been in and out, and you guys in the Zoom here, you can see that.
Yeah.
But those listening didn't know. So like my connection click back on, and I just hear you talking about like somebody's penis pictures. Like, what kind of conversation are you two
getting? Where the hell did you guys go?
While I'm charging my iPad up.
Oh, you're gonna love the playback hearing this story.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Uh-huh.
It's a good one. That's wild. Like, yeah, that's. I think aliens are definitely more believable than
most
now.
things.
Now.
Oh, now? Yeah.
After hearing that guy, the alien.
Yeah. Not to circle back, but I'm kind of with you on the whole.
If aliens are listening, would you guys come abduct me for a little while?
Not to circle back, but I'm kind of I'm with you on the whole Mothman thing and that not being quite as believable as a Bigfoot. To me, I've always thought Bigfoot's just kind of like a stop in the evolution chain in a way, between like man and ape or whatever. But Bigfoot does seem the most believable out of a lot of the cryptid characters.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of, so that's kind of my whole thing. I didn't believe in that. But I saw it. I saw a Mothman. And I didn't know that I did. And because I was a skeptic and I was like, no way, that's real. And I didn't realize it until I took a Mothman report that was similar to mine later on down the line. Then I was like, holy shit, that's what I saw. I saw that. I saw that thing. And I mean, God, back in 2019, before even that weekend that I went down to Mothman Festival, nobody could have convinced me at that time that it was real. It was like a series of events that convinced me. It wasn't just like, this thing might exist. No, it was like evidence after evidence after evidence. Otherwise, me then I'd have been like, no fucking way, that's not. But it doesn't live here. That's one thing. That's like a big misconception with some of the stuff people see. Mothman doesn't live here. You're not going to find a Mothman nest anywhere. But you certainly can find a Bigfoot den. And there's a big difference between terrestrial creatures like Bigfoot, right? It lives here. It's an animal. And a big difference between something like Mothman, which is considered ultra terrestrial, which can kind of come and go as it pleases. And believe it or not, there is scientific backing to it. It's just complicated because it's physics, and physics is hard.
Right. So
again, we don't have people throwing money to study this kind of stuff, so it's even harder.
Right. So I've heard the term, what is it, ultra terrestrial?
Yeah, ultra terrestrial.
I'm not really sure what exactly that entails.
So ultra terrestrial. So okay. Terrestrial is things of our Earth, right? It's things that live here. We're terrestrial, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Everything that's here is terrestrial. Extraterrestrial are things that come from outer space. So the implication there is if you're an extraterrestrial, you are boarding a plane on your planet and you are flying over here to get here, just like you wouldn't have, get in your car, go to Walmart. Ultra terrestrial is, a lot of people explain it as interdimensional, and that's probably a term that more people are familiar with. So instead of traveling on a terrestrial plane, instead of boarding a ship and coming here, for whatever reason, they have the ability to not jump dimensionally, because that's not really correct either. They have the ability to manipulate time in order to be able to travel more instantaneously, is more accurate. And that's where it sounds nuts. And that's where I already know I lost some of your listeners are like, no, fuck this. But I promise you, there is something to it.
It's definitely something I'm gonna look into and read a little bit more about. It's interesting.
It's a John Keel term. I recommend people check out Keel if you're really this kind of stuff's considered the woo, right? In this field, it's the woo. And John Keel's definitely a little more into the woo. But if you're interested in getting into that kind of stuff, I would say that's a good start. But these are all also just theories. Keep that in mind. But there are people that back the science. And, if you really start digging into it, you start finding those people. It's kind of horrifying, actually.
My brain is still tripping on the penis dude, but yeah, sorry.
I should have saved that story for last.
What kind of being would he be considered? Would he be extraterrestrial?
He would probably. Well,
like
that's a good
hybrid?
question.
Yeah.
It depends on how he travels. So if he travels through time and space, then if he manipulates time to travel, then he's an ultra terrestrial. If he boards a ship, then he's an extraterrestrial.
Yeah. I think he's gonna need a big ship for that thing, but wow,
fit on it.
Its own ship, dragging behind him.
It has like a little trailer behind him.
Yeah, it's like a motorcycle with a little sidecar.
Yeah,
yeah.
Just hauling my penis around.
So, back to on Wednesdays. Can you spill the beans on any interesting topics you guys are going to be touching on over the next few weeks?
Oh yeah. So we've got the most, I don't know when this airs. The most recent episode is going to be an interview with Eddie the Axe from the Bloody Bits Horror Show. So I co-host a lot over there. Well, I've been on probably about 6 or 7 episodes, but I'm a frequent flyer. And so I wanted to get Eddie to come over. So he does a horror movie podcast, but Eddie's a Satanist. So we had Eddie on just to kind of talk about Satanism and kind of how religion and politics are like a big blend and what that looks like through the eyes of a Satanist and things like that. So a little more political. We don't typically get too political on the show. But this one was definitely interesting. Didn't want to miss that opportunity. I've got other guests coming on. Don't know if I have anybody particularly notable, but my show schedule. What are we talking about? That's a good question. We're doing another retrospective on Thunderbirds and that phenomena. Something that Pat O and I both really, really enjoy, just as a cryptid in general. We're going to talk about Operation Paperclip, which was the US's way to it's basically propaganda and using the media to manipulate the masses. It's a conspiracy theory that ended up being true. So that's something that we are definitely going to touch on. What else do I got here? H.H. Holmes. That's one. H.H. Holmes is America's first serial killer, except he probably wasn't. That's the interesting part about it. So a lot of the true crime we do, I try to make it extra interesting. A lot of people think that H.H. Holmes had this crazy murder house, but come to find out, that's actually kind of a hoax. It's kind of not real. So that's interesting. And then the Battle of L.A., which was supposedly American troops here in America that were shooting at UFOs one night. So it's good stuff. One thing that I try to do about the show, just like the H.H. Holmes stuff, like I said, we find out what's real and what isn't. We try as much as we can with what we're given to separate fact from bullshit, right? And sometimes it sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you want something to be real so badly, but they just aren't. It's just not a thing. And you find that out from time to time. But it's really exciting when you find out that they are. So that'll be fun to talk about something like H.H. Holmes, like I said, which sucks that he didn't have a big murder castle. But to talk about the Battle of L.A., which absolutely fucking happened. So that'll be tons of fun.
Has there been any topic that you'd heard about that you just couldn't wait to debunk?
Oh yeah, the Denver airport. What's one? That's a big one. That one, people think that the Denver International Airport is full of all these demonic symbols and it's super spooky there. And, there's the elite feeding off of children in the underground tunnels at the airport. And then, there's just no evidence to back any of that at all. And so that was fun. We did one of our first viral episodes was when we did QAnon stuff. And that was fun. It got intimidating. I think most of the viral clicks are QAnon people that are mad at us, but I don't care. You gave me the listen. Joke's on you. So yeah, of course, there's been tons of things that, I like to get on about and talk about. We just covered in the news this week. We talked about that woman on the plane that saw the reptilian, but that's not really what happened. So it's exciting to be able to have a platform for that kind of stuff to debunk those things that aren't happening and talk about the stuff that is.
Right on.
I was in Denver airport once, and I am so glad that I said no when TSA asked me if I wanted to go to the basement for a popsicle. So glad I didn't take him up on that offer.
Should he
That's
might
a
have
smart
had a good
move.
time.
Did you see the balls on that horse? It's got whole testicles on it. It's crazy. It does. I like Lucifer. That was like the one thing I'm like, I love that big scary horse. It's big testicles. He could be good friends with the alien guy.
There you go.
It's some wild conversation, I gotta say.
That's crazy. Where is the best place that you prefer people listen to you guys at?
Anywhere besides YouTube. I'll get paid for it anywhere I listen to listen to the podcast. So Spotify, Apple, very popular. Whatever else is fun, cool, and hip with kids, that'd be great.
Okay, do you guys have a website or anything for the show, or like a merch page or anything people could check out?
So we have a really badly run Twitter account. So, so I don't suggest that. I'd probably follow just me individually. Pato's great, but he's not a social media guy either. We do have merch through or I think it's just Spring now. So I'll pass you off my link tree for everything, and then everything's listed right on there. And if you guys are ultra curious about the Big Dick Alien episode, the Patreon button is right at the top there. I swear, sub for the 1 month. Listen to it. It's worth it. It's worth the $8.
Yeah, I might have to splurge and check that one out. I don't know why I kind of feel like I need to hear that episode. So you mentioned that you believe you've seen Mothman. Have you had any other kind of encounters or sightings personally?
I mean, I've had a lot of really small potato stuff. Like I said, when I was a teenager, that's what we did. We joy rode around to all the creepy places. There's a really popular road in our area called Fudge Road. And, allegedly you drive down it and you'll see somebody hanging there. But there's like all these other legends surrounding it. And it is a weird area. So there's a house there, and it's called the Drug House because, as the story goes, back in some time before now, the police had a shootout with a bunch of drug dealers there, and that's where like the haunting stories come from. But we showed up there the first time we ever went down there. We showed up to the drug house, and it's got a big fence around it, like a big 9-foot tall chain link fence around this abandoned house. And the grass and the weeds are about as tall as that 9-foot fence. Shit you not. They're all the way up there. And we pull up. There's like a place where you can pull up to the house. We pull up there and we walk up to the fence, and there's a big padlock on it. And it's like a brand new padlock. Like, it's strange. In that yard are pigs. There's pigs living in that yard. And it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. The house itself comes up to like a point, and there's a security camera there. Now, the windows and doors and stuff are boarded off. So somebody clearly owns this property and whatever. That's where they're keeping their pigs. And, one of the legends, as the story goes, a woman in a brown Cadillac will chase you off the road. So while we're sitting there parked, well, guess what pulls up? A brown Cadillac. Guess what's in it? An old woman.
Oh.
And we were very scared. I was probably 16, 17. We were very scared. And behind her pulls up some guy in a truck. These are obviously real people. The guy is like, "What are you guys doing out here?" And we're like, "Oh, we're just kids. They're just getting high, And she starts yelling at us. She's like, "You're gonna burn in the fiery pits of hell," and like fucking preaching at us. We're like, "We gotta leave." So we did. We get in the car. We left. And then stupidly, we decided to continue to go back to this place every night for like 2 years, and that's where we'd go and get high. But we've had other things happen there. Like I said, again, obviously these were real people. Obviously somebody there is keeping their pigs in that yard, which is strange, but okay. But like we've driven down the road at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we saw an old couple. And the way that the road is, it's like a one-way street. But it's not specifically, it's like a one-lane road, but it's not one way. So if somebody comes, you have to kind of pull off and let them pass. So you drive down the road, you turn around, and you drive back through. So we saw an old couple walking kind of towards the end of the road. When we turned around and came back, they were completely gone. There's nowhere they could have gone. It was just all open fields. That was strange. We've heard weird noises out there. Just howls and stuff, assuming maybe they're coyotes, maybe they're dogs. Who knows? Or, just little things like that. As far as paranormal stuff goes, like I said, I've had things happen, nothing major. But doors locking when they shouldn't be, and just disembodied noises. And we take the spirit box out, and anywhere I investigate, I take the spirit box out and I'll use it just in case. We've had some strange answers. But my only like terrestrial sighting of anything was when I saw what is considered, it's called a thunder crow. So thunder crows are like thunder birds, except they're really large crows. And I was driving with my daughter at the time; she was 9. she had just had surgery, so I'm taking her to the doctor's for her follow-up appointment, and I'm like a mile away from my house, and we see a crow flying around. Not a big deal, right? Just a crow. But then it goes to land on one of the utility poles. The utility poles are like T-shaped, right?
Yep.
And when it gets down to the utility pole, the wings on this thing are twice as wide as the T shape, as the horizontal shape on that pole. And so I'm super excited. I am like freaking out. I'm like telling my daughter, I'm like, I look at her, I'm like, what is that? What is that? She's 9. She's not into any of this stuff. She thinks I'm fucking weird, and she's right. But you know, I'm like yelling at her. I'm like, what is that? What do you see? And she's like, it's a crow. Looks like a crow. She doesn't know crows don't get that big, but I know they don't get that big. It didn't land on the pole. It just kind of swooped off into the neighborhood and fucked off into the night. And I didn't follow it. I should have, but I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of, I was excited and hyper, but I was trying to go to the doctor with my kid, and so I didn't follow it. But I did do a follow up. Come to find out, the horizontal shape on those poles are about 4 to 6 feet across. So if you're talking double the size, you're only talking a wingspan of like 8 to 12 feet. But that's massive for a crow. They don't get that
That's a
big.
big ass crow. That's bigger than a bald eagle.
It is. I thought you were going to say it's bigger than the alien dick.
Yeah, well, that
For
too. That too.
But yeah, it is. It was large, and as I started digging into it, this isn't isolated. I mean, people think of thunderbirds, they think of like 30-foot wingspans. People don't think about thunder crows, but that's a thing. It's a phenomenon, and they're not. I mean, it's like the size of well, turkey vultures that are pretty big, right? But I don't think I'm not sure if they're that big, but it's big. It's a big ass crow.
And I've seen a crow about a week ago, not even, munching on a deer on the side of the road, and that fucker was big. He was, I swear, he was probably just the length of his body. It was probably almost 2 feet long. It looked like
And that's big.
that
And
motherfucker was huge, but that's way bigger.
well, and they
That's
wonder, are they growing? Are they getting larger? Is the population doing so well that they're evolving bigger? What's the advantage there for them to get so big? There's something to it. There's some science to it. We just haven't, it's just much like Bigfoot. And it's a crow, right? We know crows exist, but we don't know big ass crows exist yet scientifically.
They're eating better garbage.
there you
They're
go.
Maybe that's
probably,
it.
yes, they probably are. A couple
They're
small
smart. They're
children here
probably
and there.
just like, working on their diet and
Yeah.
better proteins and being more selective, because crows are pretty
I mean-
damn smart.
They just, get through to the leftover quinoa bowl that's sitting in the garbage. Like they leave all the chicken bones. Let's go for the quinoa.
Like, oh, that's packed full of protein. Well, probably. I mean, people like let their dogs outside, and the crows are like, "Holy shit, this is free food."
Yeah. I mean, those ones I saw, they were munching on a deer carcass, so that's protein, man.
That's protein, yeah. Beefing it up. I don't know what they're putting in the crow food nowadays, but it was crazy. I was, like I said, I was very excited. I wish I had stopped. And I tried to ask people, because like I've got like that Nextdoor app, and I was like trying to ask my neighbors, hey, did anybody else see this? And they didn't. My neighbors on the Nextdoor app know now that I'm like the neighborhood person to report stuff to.
So you get messages all the time now, don't you?
I do, and it's about local stuff, and I like local stuff because I can actually go there very easily.
Right.
It's nice.
So you did, besides the big penis guy, you did mention that you get a lot of weird shit in your mailbox.
I do get a lot of crazy
I hope you don't
stuff.
find that in your mailbox.
So
Well, I did once already. I'm sure it'll
Yeah.
happen again. I've only been doing this for a little over 3 years, so
right.
Didn't Justin Timberlake write a song about that? Dick in the mailbox?
did he?
So,
the SNL thing.
Oh.
The
yeah.
dick in a box.
So yeah, that's pretty crazy stuff. I mean, the Mothman itself is wild that you've possibly encountered that. We've been kind of floating the idea of we've shared stories with each other of things that we thought we've seen or encountered, and we've been thinking about let's share them at some point on the show. It's not usually our thing on the show. Most of the stuff we do is promoting other shows, other, like yourself, your podcasts, filmmakers, and everything. But we're like, you know what? Every once in a while, we like to talk about us and what we do, and a little bit of our lives. And like I said, we've been floating the idea of telling a couple, I guess, encounter stories that we've had. I mean, they might be weird or just coincidental stuff, but I figured this is probably a good episode to share it and kind of get your thoughts on it as somebody who actually is deep into this stuff. So if you don't mind.
No, please. Yeah. Go ahead and dump your stories all over me.
All right.
I'm ready to be glazed with your stories.
They're not as exciting as Mothman, but I guess my first thing, I was really young, and I remember visually what I saw, but here's where I feel kind of crazy talking about it, because I feel like it could have been a dream I had, but I remember it so like vividly that I don't know if I did see it or not, or if I was supposed to forget it or something. But it was what I think might have been a UFO sighting, or whatever the hell we're calling them nowadays.
Sure.
I just remember being young. We were at a fair, and it wasn't like I was the only person that seen it, because there was like a crowd gathered to see something that just kind of came low and hovered, and there was. I keep trying to attribute it to my young imagination, but it was just like a round spherical thing that just kind of came down and hovered and had like a weird light that was going in a like a weird sequence. It's hard to and people were stopping to look, and everybody was like, what the fuck, and like crazy, and I swear that I really seen this thing, but my brain always wants to discount everything and prove that's wrong. So I tell myself it was my childish imagination, and maybe I might have been dreaming it. But
Were you
ever
there?
hear?
I mean, were you there with like relatives?
We were there with, honestly, I don't even remember who we was there with. I just know it was like a fair, like a county fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of people around, and a lot of people stopped and were like mesmerized by this thing.
That's a good story.
And it's weird, but like I don't know, like
How young do you think you might have been?
I was probably 5, 6 years old, maybe.
Very
Pretty
young.
That's why I'm like, damn, because I can't I have a terrible memory, but that's like one of the things I remember visually in my head is that. And my other story is another thing that I remember like it was just happened.
Okay.
So there is that. So I don't know if you ever heard stories about people seeing shit like that, and I mean, obviously people are always going to question themselves.
Absolutely.
But like, have you ever heard of people like being what am I trying to say here? Like, I just don't know if I was dreaming or really seeing something. Have you heard anybody explain it like that? Like, was I dreaming it, or like, are most of these sightings you hear about, are people sure they seen it?
So, well, that's why I discounted my Mothman encounter, was
Right.
just because, to me, when I saw it was back in 2016, and it was inside of my friend's home, and it formed in the corner of a room. And, we were making pot brownies, right? So
Okay.
we were getting fucked up. But like I smoked weed on the regular. Like this wasn't, you don't hallucinate smoking
Yeah.
weed. But because of who I was at the time, I didn't want to believe that that's what I saw. put it out of my head forever and didn't even remember. I mean, just completely was like, that didn't happen. So that happens with people because it's definitely like it tests you, it tests your reality, it tests everything that you know. You know, when you're talking about UFOs, you're not just talking about seeing a light in the sky. You're talking about an entire other civilization that we don't know anything about, that we've grown up hearing horror stories about these things, right? They're abducting people, they're poking them in the butt with instruments. I mean, that's horrifying,
Yeah.
cutting people open, mutilating cattle. Um, a lot of people have that experience. I'll have people that, they kind of have a very similar situation where, again, the memory isn't jogged out of them until they hear somebody else's story. And then they're like, oh, yeah. And they've just pushed it out of their mind because that couldn't possibly be happening to them. I don't know if you've ever really been in a crisis type of situation. Car accidents, just any type of like real under the pressure, and kind of trauma, where time is kind of the essence and everything kind of changes. Um, just time moves slower and faster at the same time, and you kind of feel like you're having an out of body experience while you're just simply reacting to what's going on around you, and you're an autopilot, but your brain's
Right.
off. Um, I believe that that's a very similar experience to that. So yeah, that's completely valid. If I were you, I would ask her. I mean, again, I don't know what your family's like or anything. I don't know if you have siblings that maybe could have been there. I'd ask around the family, be like, hey, do you remember this?
Yeah.
And you might look nuts for a minute, but you know what? You might surprise yourself because they might look at you and go, yeah, I do remember that. And then
Right.
it validates your experience.
Well, I mean, I can't look no more nuts than the rest of my family, so I should I should work that angle. But yeah, it's just one of them things that I've always just kind of tried to talk myself out of. You know what I mean?
Especially with everybody else that saw it. I mean, you could even do like whatever your local like city is or like where you lived at the time, like get on there and find get on Facebook, get a Facebook group of like that city and just get on there and be like, hey, does anybody remember the UFO at the county fair? Blah, blah, blah. You can post anonymously.
Yeah.
And you would really be surprised how many people, like I said, all my neighbors know that I'm the person to report shit to. And instead of
Right.
them going, oh, that's that crazy girl, like they're into it. They're like, oh, I saw something. This is it. I have people giving me their Ring doorbell camera footage. I mean, you'd be shocked the amount of people that are receptive to that kind of stuff. So I would look, if I were you, I'd want to know. I'd look into it.
Right. I should. I need to dig and kind of try to figure where that was. Try to remember who I was with.
Just
That's the
join like
hard part.
10
Like, I
different
can't.
city
I
groups.
can't remember. A half hour ago. I don't remember
Right.
what I
I
was doing
understand.
before we started doing it, so it's like, damn. But it's just
Same.
the visual part of that memory has just always kind of been there. And another crazy thing that kind of always made me wonder what the hell it was so when I was probably 12, 13, I lived in a city. We kind of lived on the top of a hill. And so there was a hill, and then my house was on top. Our driveway was another hill. And it overlooked, there was an old factory there that was
Okay.
always locked up. Nobody could get in and out because we used to always try to break in there and mess around in there when we were kids because we were shitty kids. And it was a day me and a friend were outside hanging out, or we're throwing a football around or something. And a shape came up the hill, like a person, but it was all black. Couldn't see a face, anything. And they came up, and like somehow their hand was on fire. Like they took their hand out of their pocket and there was fucking fire. And
Interesting.
they went into that building. Like they opened the door and went in that building. Did not
That
come
is
back out. Like immediately we called cops and everything, and they were there, like swarming that building, and there was no way in or out. They couldn't open the fucking door to go in.
wow.
And And I don't know that just thinking about that, just like it's very unsettling. It was a
Yeah.
really unsettling feeling, and like I don't know what the fuck that could have been. Like it's not like you're out in the middle of daylight gonna see a ghost walking up the hill or you've heard any crazy shit like that.
I mean, I've definitely heard of like shadow people, and initially I'm like, okay, shadow person. But then you told me his hand was on fire, and I've never heard of that before. That's
But
very interesting.
yeah, that was odd. Like it scared the hell out of us, and we called cops immediately, and we were watching through the slats in our fence, and they
Yeah.
came and searched and questioned us, and yeah,
I
nobody
mean,
went.
yeah, like you mentioned, oh, it's like a black figure, and walks through the door. I'm like, okay, yeah, I've heard this, but his hand was on fire.
Yeah,
That's pretty unique, actually. I've never heard of anything like that before happening. Um, so I mean, the only details you could really make out are just a shape, a general shape form. Is
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Gotcha.
It just looked like he was wearing like it was almost like if you see somebody with like a hoodie on and you can't see
Yeah,
their face,
right.
but it was like there was no. It was just like this
No
silhouette,
detail. Yeah.
but it was a person. That's a person. But
Huh.
like, how the fuck did they get in that
And
place
they
that we've
didn't
been trying to break into?
Right.
and they didn't seem to mind that their hand was on fire.
No, it just like nothing. Like he came coming up the hill, and you could see him slowly come up the hill, like as you would, and then he just like took his hand out of his pocket, and he took his hand out, and it was like he was holding fucking fire in his hand, and I don't know, he opened that fucking door, went in, and we almost shit on ourselves and called the cops.
Put that fireball back in your pocket.
And
You're
we
scaring the
watched, and
kids.
they came, and they couldn't open the door. They
And that
went
was that.
around the other side of the building. There was nothing.
Did he open the door with
He
the fire hand?
literally opened the door.
But with the fire hand?
I see that. I don't remember. I just know he had a fire hand and he opened the door. Like as soon as we seen the fire hand, we were like, "All right, let's go." And then we watched from a distance. He went in, and yeah,
Which you didn't
it was
like
just
see
quick. It was
how
just
he
quick.
might
He
have
just
went
like
in.
came up, hand came out, fire, start running, and he went in the door.
Yeah. Well, I don't
Like,
play.
this guy has hand on fire. He's cool with it. Let's go.
Maybe it
Something's
was
wrong here.
something. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that doesn't even sound like a
It,
typical ghost. You know what I
it
mean?
don't
Like that.
sound like anything. Yeah, I know.
No, I've never heard of anything like that before. That's crazy. That's a crazy story.
Yeah,
That's
and the shitty thing is the only person that was there with me that saw that like literally just passed away recently, and um it kind of triggered me thinking about it because when I was telling Caleb
yeah,
about it, it's just like right after my friend had passed away, and I was like, yeah,
yeah.
this kid I grew up with, and it's weird because I'd love to talk with him about that and see if he remembered it, but
Yeah, you had a crazy experience together, and that's the only other person that can even
mhm.
half know what you
Yeah,
guys, had you guys talked? I mean, I'm assuming you guys have talked about it after the fact. I mean,
I don't remember ever speaking with him about that.
after that, you're like, we'll
Yeah,
never talk about this
no,
again.
because like
Fire
we
hand guy.
basically, once we hit later teens, we went to different high schools
Sure.
and went different directions. But every couple of years we'd connect. Hey, how you been? How's family? Blah blah blah. But
Remember
never
the
been
guy
like,
that
hey, remember the
was on
fire
fire?
hand guy? Like, no. Yeah, like
That's
I don't even like telling people about that because I feel like a fucking weirdo. Like it sounds crazy and absurd and like so unbelievable. Like
yeah.
thinking I saw a UFO sounds more realistic than this shit
Fire hand
sounds
guy.
like. Yeah.
And that's a sentiment that a lot of people because I've heard some wild, I mean, I've heard things outside of Bigfoot stories and
Yeah.
UFO. I mean, I've heard some crazy stuff before. Um and what I like to say about them, about those kinds of things, is that like who dreams? It's so out there, it's so ridiculous. Who dreams that shit up? Like that 100% happened. Like you don't just think this up and go, oh, I'm going to come up with this crazy story. If you're going to lie about it, you're just going to latch on to something that, everybody's seen already. I think most people that have more outlandish stories to me seem a lot more truthful. And then whenever you do have a significant encounter, one thing that I noticed that people say that typically are telling the truth, they say exactly that. It sounds crazy. It's you're
Yeah,
not gonna believe this, but they
because
say those kinds of statements.
seriously, like if Caleb had this happen to him and he told me, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, dude. You're full of shit. But no,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And it's like, I did grow up very young age watching horror movies and everything.
Sure.
But, if it's my imagination, why did this dude see it too?
That's true.
Why were
That's very
we
true.
both like shook and running and hiding, waiting for the cops to come? Could we both seen this dude? Yeah, I don't know.
Have
It's
you
weird.
ever shared that with anybody before? I mean, besides Caleb, have you
I've
shared
told
this
it a couple people over the years, but I actually hadn't talked about it for a long time until
Okay.
last year. We had a guest on and we kind of carried over, after the actual episode, meat and potatoes of the episode, we kind of just kept chatting about stuff, and they would do ghost hunts and stuff, and they told a story about some weird like shadow figure type thing happening. So I was like, that's crazy. It's like almost sounds like this story, but it was fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
told my story and they were like, that's crazy. You should tell that story. And like, I just, just kind of cashed it back away. And
well, sure. I mean, yeah, it's
Time
so
and place for
bizarre.
everything.
yeah. And then after, like I said, that a friend that passed away, kind of
Right.
some reason I just thought about that. I was like, just thinking about old memories of the old friend after they pass. And I was like, dang, that time was crazy. And this was right about when I told Caleb about it. So we were like, you know what? Let's do an episode where we talk about weird shit we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to look into that more because I'm very curious now because I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
So if I find anything, I'll let you know.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean, I
So
was
I
just
have
thinking.
a
Oh, it was the town we lived in was just like really old. Uh, in New England, old New England town with a lot of history,
Oh,
and so it could have been some weird witchy shit or something. I don't know, but it scared the shit out of me. And
yeah.
even thinking about it sometimes, it makes me feel uneasy. But carry on. Sorry.
That's
so
great.
I have a story that's not quite as weird. Nobody's hand was on fire. Nothing was on fire actually. Um so there's a place here in Port Townsend called Manresa Castle that
Okay.
you should look up sometime, look it up online. Now they just call it the castle, but it'll always be Manresa to me. So I was 15, 16, and I was with my mom, her best friend since they were little, and her friend's niece. And we were all parked in front of Manresa. And so there are a couple stories that go along with the place.
Mhm.
One involving like a butler that hung himself in the attic
Oh,
many years ago. And then there's also one involving this woman that supposedly jumped out the window of the third story of the top floor. And she supposedly jumped out of the window of like the room that's on the right on the corner. And so again, we're facing the building and we're looking up at that room. And there's this glow in the room that doesn't quite look like a television reflection, where like the light would kind of, you know, go off, and you know what it looks like when
sure.
you're seeing television glare or reflection. Um, so this was more of like a kind of a constant blue tint,
Okay.
and I remember my mom's friend and niece going inside, and they asked if anybody was staying in that room, and they said no.
Okay.
I don't know if they were just kind of saying that to go along with the spooky vibe of the place. I highly doubt it. I feel like they take that money if somebody wanted to stay in the room.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very
So
cool.
that was kind of odd.
There's definitely a history in that building. So it's like,
several ghost hunter shows have been here, and have explored the castle.
Oh, okay.
I think the show just titled Ghost Hunters, and then there's another one that I can't think of. And then on the History Channel, they had a show called Haunted History for a little while.
Okay.
And there's like a 15-minute segment of Manresa. And I remember them talking about like there was a shot glass on the end of the bar top, and I guess it just shattered into pieces out of nowhere. It's hard to know like what to believe, but it's all interesting and it's intriguing.
So it's very historically haunted. I mean, it's people, people know. Has anybody reported seeing that light in the room?
We definitely didn't report it, but just
I mean, just is that like one of the stories, like, oh, you'll see a light in this room,
not that I know of.
I've heard about people hearing sounds from the room and from above where the priest hung himself. I have a friend that used to work the front desk at that hotel, and she said there's actually a guest logbook full of stories, like encounters and stuff people have, which I need to get my hands on that and look through it, because that sounds like it'd be something fun to read. That'd be fun to read. But yeah, there's seeing a woman walk down the hallway crying and stuff, like a lot of crazy stuff. There's a lot of weird history in that building.
Yeah. Well, two of my own personal encounters both happened at hotels. And we did an episode on Elisa Lamb, and the Cecil Hotel incident, where that girl ended up in the water tower there.
Right.
And my co-host Pat, he's an engineer. That's what he does as his day job. And he worked for a very popular hotel back, in Chicago, for a while. And, one thing that we talked about with him being in the hotel industry is just that, it's almost anytime you stay at just any hotel, I mean, it's almost a given. Like, there's a pretty good chance that you're in a building that contains a dead body right then and there. It happens so often. And then, talking about the types of people that end up at these hotels, they're just a lot of them, some people go to hotels for extended stays and they're there because they're down on their luck and they're having issues. And then, it ends up being either just a point in their life that's so low that maybe they get out of it and they move on. But they always kind of remember that low point in their life. And maybe it's something as simple as remembering that hotel that draws spirits to them. Who knows? A lot of these old historic hotels, like that one you guys are talking about, probably has a different history. I went to the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas one time, and it was jarring. That place fucked me up, and and I still don't really know what to make of it. But it used to be, before it was a hotel, it had two different sets of history. It was a home for unmarried women. And after that, it was actually this guy who claimed he did cancer research, and he would have people come there and he would write the families like he's treating them and have them send money, but he was like injecting them with like watermelon juice and shit, and they would die shortly after. And they continue like to this day to like dig up wayward body parts of some of the victims of this guy. And again, a lot of these hotels, these big buildings, they weren't always hotels. They were something else that has a whole other, set of circumstances attached to it. And so that is really interesting because, I am skeptical of ghosts being dead people. I said that earlier. I don't think that they're dead people, but there's something going on there for sure. And I think that's interesting.
Damn, no more watermelon for me. And Steve, if I see you eating any, I'm gonna slap it out of your hand.
just don't shoot it up. Like, you're fine as long as you don't shoot it,
Yeah, you don't want those seeds will cause clots or something. You know.
Yeah.
That's canceling the plans that I had for my kid's 4th birthday party.
Don't
We
shoot
were
it.
all
Just-
going to do that.
Just smoke it.
We were
all right?
all
Don't
going to
shoot
shoot
it.
up watermelon
Yeah.
juice.
If you just smoke it, you'll be all right. It's a different high, but you know. It's
So
like
we-
you get a seed in your vein and it starts growing a watermelon, like you know, when you swallow one, allegedly.
We need to just book one of those rooms at Manresa one night and go explore and
You should
see if
do
we
it.
see some weird shit.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes absolutely nothing happens and it's very boring. But but when you do see something, it is very fascinating. I mean, like the second hotel I was in. I mean, I went there for a convention. I was one of the speakers there. And after the event, the girl was like, "Hey, you need to go down to the basement. There's something down there." I'm like, "Okay." It's a historically haunted hotel. It's the oh, I can't remember what it was called. It was in Marietta, Ohio. Doesn't matter. Anyway, we go down there and I'm like, whatever, it's a hotel basement. It's not impressive. And then like you hit a corner and go into like the boiler room, and it was fucking weird in there. So it's like you go into this like rectangle shaped room, and in the room there's two doors. There's one directly in front of you and there's one to your left. And if you open that door, there's like this smaller L-shaped room that kind of wraps around the rectangle. And so I peered into the door right in front of me, and I didn't like what I saw initially. I was just like, well, that's spooky because it's just like a cement room. It just looks spooky. And I shut the door. And then I went to the other door to go in the other door so I could peek in that side. And when I did that, the door, it locked. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's time to go.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
nope, you're not welcome. Nope.
I gotta leave. So that was that. But yeah, they called him the smiling man down there because it's just this entity that has this giant horrifying smile on his face, and he's apparently very scary. So I don't know if that was him. I don't know. I don't know what he is exactly. Maybe I'll go back one of these times when I'm not exhausted from talking to people all day. We'll see.
Yeah, that's. Oh, yeah, that sounds creepy.
Hotels are creepy. They just are. They're also we did an episode on this, liminal spaces and liminality. And hotels are absolutely liminal spaces. They're just derelict. You know, you're not in a hotel room hanging out. Like you're getting from space to space and there's just nothing else going on. And you just kind of feel it while you're walking to your room, you know? And what creates that atmosphere? Is it that atmosphere that draws these things to the place? Who knows?
Well, it gives you a lot to ponder. This is the kind of stuff you guys talk about on Wednesdays. We talk weird, and
Every
I think
week.
our listeners should go check it out. They put their show out weekly on Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays, yeah.
Because that's the day. That's the best day of the week to talk weird. Is Wednesday.
Yep.
Scientifically proven, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, run down the info again where they could follow you and find the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the show on Wednesdays we talk beard. It's the only thing that comes up when you Google it, so you can find it anywhere. As far as I go, you can follow me personally on social media. I have a Twitter and Instagram at it's Asherz. I have a Facebook page, Ashley Hilt, my first and last name. I'm the one with the red hair, so you can't miss me. And that's it, I guess. I mean, yeah, just check out the show. We think we're funny and cool and informative, so I think you will too.
That's definitely what keeps me intrigued. Informative
Yeah.
is good, but you throw in funny and cool, I'm on it. I'm on it. So yeah, we'll make sure to get links up and everything in the show notes. And anything you guys want to add before we wrap up?
I think I'm good.
I'd say we got a good slice of what your show brings to the table here today. So thank you for coming on chat with us for a while.
Absolutely.
Get on their Patreon and hear the story about the big dick guy.
Yeah, just the 1 month. I promise you won't be disappointed.
Imagine if the big dick guy hung out with the fire hand guy.
Probably did.
I don't think those two things should go together.
No. Maybe he should burn that thing though, because that's Sounds like a curse, but
Take a couple inches off of it a little bit, you know. They're
It's a
riding off
demon, burn it!
They're riding off into the sunset on the Lucifer statue with its giant testicles. Yeah.
there you go.
Perfect.
Well, that's a good point to thank you for joining us, and let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, listeners, go check out on Wednesdays We Talk Weird, and thanks, Asherz, and we will be in touch.
Sure.
This is Jade Libra, and you're listening to the Stephen Crypto Show.
Hi, this is Matthew Patrick Davis. I play the mother in Barbarian, and you're listening to the Stephen Crypto Show. Baby.
And we're back. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoy the chat. Hope you enjoyed the long, weird chat that we had, but it was good. It was really good.
Weird, but it was a blast.
Yeah.
It was a blast. So, yeah, thanks again, Ashley. Make sure you guys go check out on Wednesdays We Talk Weird. You can find it on most of the podcast players. And we'll put a link in the description to her link tree or whatever the thing's called, so you can see where to share the show and all the other shit she has going on. She's an interesting person and just cool to chat with. I definitely want to chat with her again at some point down the road. But with that being said,
I was just thinking it wasn't even a Wednesday and we were talking weird. Was that
remember
allowed?
what day it was.
Yeah.
We're
Here's
so
a little
far
insight,
behind.
people. We're recording this segment not on a Wednesday. This is, the following week. That's a little insight into the show.
I'm just hoping we can get this episode out by Wednesday. So
then you guys will at least be listening to it on a Wednesday.
With that being said, we're gonna shut the fuck up, and we're gonna go get to.
We broke the rules.
We're gonna get to editing this. Before I go, one last thing, I want to ask you guys to go check out the crowdfunding campaign for Friday the 13th Blood Loss fan film. It's a Friday the 13th fan film that I will be popping up in. You'll find the link to that campaign in the show notes as well. And it's shaping up to be a good one. I think Ari Lehrman's in it, who is the first Jason, and a bunch of other people.
That's really cool.
So yeah, check it out, contribute to it, maybe get your name on the movie somewhere. Be kind of cool. It's fun to promote and support some of these indie films like this, especially the fan films, because it's just a bunch of horror nerds like paying homage to some of their favorite stuff. Like, we'll actually discuss that in a future episode with another filmmaker that we may or may not have just recorded an interview with before we did this, but like, we're in the future but in the past at the same time, because we're that damn good. That's why we're your third favorite podcast. And that's let's go back into the past and edit this shit. So we will see you guys next week on episode 122. We're getting old. Bye, guys.
We've been old. Catch you later. Peace.